Okay. All right, so I'm recording now. That way I do not forget. And I am going to share the screen so that you guys can see this document, which I will put in the group me so that y'all can see it and access it. But it is just a Google Drive doc that I made that has directions to step you through the ePortfolio setup, like how you would do it. Some of you might have this already because maybe you've had a class with Captain Walden where he took you through the process of creating this. If not, this will walk you through it. I'm also going to create a like a screencast video that shows me doing it as well, step by step, following these directions. But the purpose of this, it's a graduation requirement for Samford. Like everybody does this. So, hey, Becca. So it's not just music education has to do this. This is elementary ed majors have to do this. Phys ed majors have to do this. World language majors have to do this. Everyone has to do it. So we're not unique. This isn't something that like I'm making you do. It's something that everybody that graduates with a degree in education eventually has to go through. And the purpose of creating it is so that you have a way of showing a prospective employer how you meet the in-task standards. And you might have never heard the in-task standards before. Maybe that's something that you know, maybe that's something you've never heard, but pretty much any school in the country, like in the United States, is going to be educating you based on the in-task standards. They're just sort of like a national thing where we say, hey, all teachers should know how to do these things. They should be competent in these 10 areas. And so the purpose of the portfolio is for you to gather evidence that shows that you're competent in all those areas. So you get these artifacts. So in order to create it, what you're going to do is make sure that you have a Google account that is not associated with Samford. And the reason that they ask you to use just like a different one, just a Gmail or, not .edu, is because you may graduate from Samford and who knows how long that account, your email account, is going to exist after you graduate from here. So you want to make sure that you still have access, or a principal or somebody, like the link doesn't go dead. And it may eventually go dead if it's something that's associated with your @samford.edu email address. So, like the ones that I'm going to be showing you tonight are from my Gmail account, just my regular morgansoya@gmail.com account. So that's where all of this is housed. So log into your Drive. And then, you're going to do new. So I'm going to navigate away from this setup. Just know that this is still here. I'm actually just going to go to my regular old Drive though. So I'm stopping my screen share for just a second while I get over there. And then I'm going to reshare. Boop. Google Chrome should be here someplace. All right, so now you should just see my Drive showing up. And the first thing we're going to do is click on New. Great. You're going to go all the way down to More because you want to do a site. Google Sites, click on it. What they want from everybody is they want it to be standardized. And so what they're looking for, it does not matter what this background and stuff looks like, although they do say, hey, make it kind of professional. This is not the time to go nuts and like put your whole personality out there for everybody to see. Not that you shouldn't be who you are, but don't get crazy with like crazy fonts or colors or anything like that. Not a good time for that. So what they say is make it last name. You want to have digital portfolio, or you could say, doctor, or if you want to use like a salutation, like back in the day for me, when I was just getting done with school, it would have been so that would have been me. I probably want to make that a little bit bigger, drag it across. My maiden name was Churchill, so there you go. Or, You say Miss Churchill, senior portfolio, whatever. The other thing that you also want to do is go over here and do the same thing. That way you have a copy. There it is. It's saved. You're good to go. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. Now you have a site, it's in your drive, and then you can make all the changes that you want to change. But you got to make a whole bunch of pages in this thing. So we're actually going to go over here to pages, and you have your home page. Now what we're going to do is go down to the plus, and you're going to create a whole bunch of them. And the pages you're going to create are the pages that an administrator or anybody else you give this link to is going to use to navigate through your site. And so you're going to want to do resume. Ooh, hey baby. There we go. Resume is going to be one. Then you want philosophy. And you want them in this order. So if your Google Drive is like mine and it's acting dumb and it's putting them in the wrong spot, you can just drag them. That's the great thing about Google Drive. And then they're going to start to get into these in-task standards. So I'm going to be using words or titles. These are the in-task standards. So standard 1 is learning differences. Nope, learner development. Just kidding. That's a new page. I'm going to drag it, put it in the right spot. Learning differences is number 2. Done. Still, why are you going all the way up to the top? I'm just going to keep dragging them and trying to make it work the way I want it to. Learning environments. Drag it. Boop. Content knowledge. All the way at the top. Why are you doing this to me, Google? Why you got to be that guy? Application of content. I don't know if y'all can hear my husband in the other room. He's gaming. He's playing Among Us. So if you're an Among Us fan, that's what's happening on a Discord server in another room in my house. Assessment is going to be another section. So each of these things that I'm making right now, each of these pages are places where you're going to put evidence. Planning for instruction is another one. Drag it down. Plus, go ahead, James.
Does all this usually happen in our senior year with like all these different things that we're doing?
They're going to be, it should kind of be throughout your 4 years, which is why I wanted to make sure that I did this now, because some of you are getting close to the end of your 4 years, and you probably have things that can fill this from other classes that you've taken here. But like, out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes if you took a class a long time ago, you forget, or maybe you misplaced that document that was really good evidence for this or that or the other. So I wanted to make sure I kind of got you guys thinking about that now. And the last one is leadership and collaboration.
Can you say the other one after assessment? I can't quite read.
Sure.
Planning instruction, is that what it says?
It is planning for instruction. Sorry, I'm dragging them down here. Boop. Instructional strategies is after planning for instruction, then professional learning and ethical practice, and leadership and collaboration. And I'm going to have a document that has all of these in there too. So those are all going to be there. You will have a list of these. So those are just the pages that you're going to have, and they're going to be listed up here in the top. You've got your home page, resume, philosophy, learner development, so on, so that people could, you know, navigate to any one of them where your evidence is going to be. Now, of course, you can change your little themes and do whatever you want to do with this. You can, I would stick kind of to something that is pretty basic. Again, not something you want to go crazy on. But I love gray, but I'm going to go with green, I think, this time. And you can change these if you want to. It's not required that you stick with something drab and boring. You don't have to do that. But on your home page, what you're going to want to do is the first thing you're going to do is go back over here to insert. And you're going to want to choose a layout that has a photograph and text. That's actually this first one here, because what they want from everybody is they want a picture, a biography, and something that includes your contact information. And when they talk about a picture, they usually want a professional picture. It could be headshots that you've had done that are professional headshots. Could be like a shot from your senior recital or something, but it should be like a nice picture that you have. Probably not. I'm trying to find one that might suffice. I don't have a lot of pictures of myself, if that is surprising to you. That's an old headshot of mine, but I could put that there. Oof, heavens. We'd need to resize that. That's kind of a mess, but okay. We're going to go with that. And then we would want to have like a little blurb about myself. You know what I mean? So I would put my biography in here. I would want to talk about myself as an educator, what I want to do, what I specialize in, when I graduated from college. You know, is a choral music educator from Cleveland, Ohio. She graduated from Bowling Green State University before any of these people were born. No, that's not true. I probably graduated a little bit after you were born, but some time ago. We're going to go with that. All right. But whatever else you put there, you want to go ahead and put there. And then you want to make sure that you have your contact information there. So this is where you probably want to have your non-Samford University email and a cell phone number, since phones, I mean, a lot of people text a lot. You want your potential employer to be able to call you. So where am I? And then my cell phone number, which has remained the same since probably around the time that you were born. Okay, it really is for some of you around the time that you were born. Scary. All right. So bio, picture, bebop. We would want to clean that up a little bit, but that's the basics of what should be on that page. So you want a picture of yourself, a little bit of an introduction, and make sure that you have contact information. Yeehaw. Then we are going to go back to the resume page. So all the way up, resume. This is pretty simple. Guys, you're going to put a resume on your resume page. It's not too terrible. And the way you're going to do that is to text box first, and we're going to insert a link. I've got to get rid of you. I've got to minimize you guys for just a second because you're over here. And what I'm going to want to do is link to not one of these pages. It's going to be a link from somewhere else. So I want to get a link from another Google document. So I can go into my drive and figure out what that's going to be. Uh-oh. I've got chat. There you guys are. Okay. Ooh, okay. Catherine Mullen does great headshots. Awesome. Yeah, because guys, headshots are like a big deal. It's nice to have nice things. Let's assume for a hot second, I'm going to use this little PDF. It's not of my resume, but it's a PDF. You want to PDF all these things. You don't want to give people like links to a doc or a Google Doc. You want to turn them into PDFs before you post them. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and link and just put resume. So now that person has a link to my resume, and I'm also going to embed that. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on embed over in insert. I'm going to take the exact same URL that I used and insert that. So you see how now it shows up as an actual document that the person can see. I'm going to make that big enough across the page, and Google's got this really nice little thing where you can see the grid lines essentially. And I'm going to make it 1 page long. So let me make it all the way down to a page here. This is a 4-page long document. It's not a resume, sorry about that. And if you want to see what it looks like, you can actually go over to, not version history, to preview, and you can see what it looks like. I've got my link over there, so if the person just wants to click on it, it's there. And now they can actually scroll through the document if they want to. They can go through all 4 pages. So you want both a link and you want to embed the actual piece of evidence. And they can also pop it out if they want to, and it'll open in a Google document of the PDF if that's what you want them to be able to do. Okay, so then I want to exit my preview. You can also look at what it looks like on a tablet or on a phone. What's it look like on a phone? Oof, a mess is what it looks like on a phone. It looks a little bit better on a tablet if somebody's using an iPad. So not too bad. You can X out of that. All right, then we're going to skip philosophy right now because it's essentially the same thing as the resume. That's, you would, put your philosophy document up there and link to it as well. But now we're going to go back to one of the sections, learner development. So this is where you have just a little bit of work to do, where now you're going to, sorry, I'm working on 2 computers because I'm an insane person. I don't know why I'm doing that. You're going to put in a text box, and this is where you're going to describe what the learner development in-task standard is, because believe it or not, principals don't have them all memorized. It would be great if they did. And I have the basic gist of most of them, but we don't have them all memorized. So I'm going to go back and share my screen again with y'all on a little spot here where you will be able to see what I can see. So in this ePortfolio document that tells you how to set up your site, I've got a link to the in-task standards. So when you guys are creating this website, you can literally just go here to standard 1 and copy and paste it, then head back to your site. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the site again. Okay, great. Sometimes when you switch windows, it gets angry. So I'm going to go back here and just copy and paste that. That's it. Because I want the person to know, I'm like, what standard am I finding evidence for? What's going on? So if you think I've got a lot of things for learner development, I've got a lot of different pieces of evidence for learner development. Say I want to do 2. I'm going to have 2 pieces of evidence. What I'm going to do is click on that little plus, and I'm just going to go from drive, and my drive will pop up. Great. Awesome. Guys, this is not going to be a learner development thing. Although I suppose I could make it a learner development thing. Let me go and look for a lesson plan.
Did you, Dr. Soria?
Uh-huh.
Did you copy and paste the intact standard into the document, or did you just type it out of the top of your memory?
I copied and pasted that. So, and there's a Google Doc link in the link that I'm going to share those Google Docs with all of you guys in the group me so that you can get to them. You can access them at any time. That way you'll have the in-task standards, and that way you'll have this guide on how to make this site and do all the things. So I've got this music lesson plan that we're going to say is good for learner development. I don't know whether it really is, but we're going to go with that. And I'm also going to make it the size of a page. I think that just looks really clean. And when I click to edit this text, I'm going to link to the same thing. Again, I want the person to, I'm going to say diversified lesson plan. That's just what we're going to call it. We're going to apply that. Oh, poop. Sorry, guys. The thing that I linked to, I didn't paste the right thing. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay. So what I want to do is actually get that link that I used here for that lesson plan. So I'm going to go back into my drive. It's my BB Bumblebee lesson plan. If I can find it, bb.docx. And I just want to get that link. Share, get copy link. We're good to go. Go back to my site, put it in here. There we go. And then what I'm going to do below that is now describe why this lesson plan fits. Why is this a good piece of evidence for learner development? How does this lesson plan show that I understand how learners grow and develop, how they recognize patterns of learning, how development varies individually for different students of different ages, of social emotional capabilities, etc. Right? So what does this lesson plan do? That's what I'm going to want to type in this box here. I developed this lesson plan for blah, blah, blah. You know what? Bag. Okay, so that's what I would do in this area. And then I would keep doing that with these other pieces of evidence that fit underneath learner development. Again, I can check it, I can preview, and ooh, a mess. So you can tell what I need to do. That's on a tablet. What about, yeah, there we go. On a big screen, it doesn't look too bad. Person can scan down and look through my whole lesson plan. They can click on diversified lesson plan. Okay, that would show up. Very good. Okay, so it looks pretty good on there. For a tablet, it looks kind of a mess. Looks kind of like a mess on a phone too. So I might want to drag these little things out depending on how people are going to be viewing this, because on a tablet, this looks pretty terrible. If I think somebody's going to be viewing it that way. And so what you end up doing to create this is you populate each of these pages with the evidence that's going to support you and say, hey, this person knows about assessment. This person knows about their content knowledge. This person knows about professional learning and ethical practice. What you guys are doing right now is literally professional learning and ethical practice. So you're learning how to develop a Google site. Now it's a portfolio. This might not be the one that I would use, but anytime you attend a professional development session, those are things that can go here. You write a reflection on, what did I learn about this? You know, how is this showing evidence of me taking charge of my own learning and my development as a professional within teaching and learning? So let me check the chat because I can see. Big fan of BB Bumblebee. Yes, indeed. Stung a man upon his knee, stung a pig upon his snout. I declare that you are out. Okay, so these in-task standards are going to be in this document that I'm going to share with you. It's linked there. It also goes through and it tells you exactly how to do what we just walked through. And I'm also going to make a video that is going to walk you through exactly what I just did as well for people that need to reference it. If you're a visual learner and somebody who says, you know, I just really got to watch that happening, I'm looking at this text and it doesn't really make sense to me. So I'm going to make a screencast video of that as well. But the thing that you're probably asking a little bit of a question about are what goes underneath these standards? What goes there? Well, what I've done is I actually went to our, thank you, sincerely a visual learner. I went to the in-task standards and I looked at what they say there's a big honkin' document of in-task standards that goes into much more detail than just the wording that you're going to copy and paste, and it talks about competencies and dispositions and things like that, skills that you should have developed in order to be able to do these things well, to show that you have these things essentially. And so what I did after looking through that was I said, what makes sense for a music educator? What types of things exist in music education that fit these in-task standards? So I made a document that has assignment suggestions. Does that mean that these are the only things that are going to fit, that go with learner development, or that go with content knowledge, or that go? No, that does not mean that. This is just what I could think of at that particular moment. I took like a day and a half and said, what types of evidence can I come up with? So we might expand upon this list as we go through and say, ooh, this is a really good one. I hadn't thought of that before, but somebody had a great assignment. So for learner development, you want to be able to show that you understand kids essentially. How do they grow? How do they become, what are they like as kindergartners? What are they like as third graders? What are they like in middle school? James. Yes.
I have a perfect thing for that. If we took a class with Dr. Freeman called Adolescent Development, and what we had to do was create a learner profile.
Uh-huh.
Would that be physical evidence that we've learned about learner development?
Absolutely. And it's
I
something
still
that
have that.
yeah, that's exactly why we're doing this now. So that like if you took that class last semester or last year, you're going, "Oh, I still have that. I didn't throw that away. I didn't get rid of that." Wonderful. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
what what would be really great for us to be able to do is to say what classes y'all take that really link up with each one of these. Now, some of your teachers and professors, like if you've looked at, like Becca, you've looked at my syllabus for choral methods, and it has which of the course SLOs are aligned with which of the in-task standards. And so, it gives you sort of an idea of, and then my assignments are crosswalked to those SLOs, which are crosswalked to the in-task standards. So you know that like when you're doing this assignment, it might fit with this in-task standard. That's why I bother to put them in the syllabus. That's why they're there. I mean, yes, they should be there anyway, because it's something that when our School of Education and when NASM, the National Association of Schools of Music, come, they want to make sure that we're doing the right things. That's part of the reason that we put that in there. But it's also to help y'all and to help me remember what assignments might fit for these portfolios, because almost every college and school in the country does something like this. We did something like this at Gardner Webb too, where I came from. So I was just in that practice already of saying this assignment works for the portfolio, this assignment works for the portfolio. I'm new here, so I'm just learning that. But if you have like a notebook or a collection of instructional strategies for teaching concepts at different ages or stages, so like some of you know that Baxley and Becca have recently been teaching quarter notes, eighth notes, and quarter rests to their first graders, or like their first and second graders, or their third graders, I think maybe in Baxley's case. The way that you would teach quarter and eighth notes to third graders or to first graders is going to be very different than the way that you teach it to an older beginner, than, like maybe a middle schooler or a high schooler who's learning for the first time. The way that you engage them, some of them will be the same, but some of them will be different just based on the fact that they're older. They are, socially and cognitively different at 14 than they are at 8. So if you were like, here's how I would teach different things at different ages and stages, great. That's a piece of evidence. That interest survey and planning instruction based on results, results of assessments and future plans based on what you saw. If you did a paper on cognitive or social or emotional or linguistic development, those of you who might have done something like that in 323 or whatever class that is, or 414, Becca, you're in right now, linguistic development, that could be used there. if you've ever attended an IEP meeting or you learn about IEPs in one of your classes, 202 probably teaches you at least a little bit about IEPs and what they are.
Yes.
Um,
Chapter
yeah,
summaries. You can, if your chapter summary is short enough and if you like really condense. So we have to make these chapter summaries for 202, and there's a whole thing about IEPs in the chap in one of the chapters. So I write my chapter summaries relatively long, but if you were able to condense them down, I'm sure they would accept that as a means of saying, "Hey, I read about this. I understand it."
and some of it's what you do with it. If you take that information and then, show how you can, what they really want to see is the application of these things. What does that look like in a classroom? What does it look like in your classroom? That's what they want to see. If I'm a principal and I want to hire you, I don't just want to know that you know it. I want to know that you can use it. That's really important. So keep that in mind as you guys are going through these. Learning differences. Again, that's going to seem 1 and 2 kind of hold hands. They're a lot alike. Learner development and the differences between learners and how you address those differences. Like we just said, visual learners. It's like, oh, hey, don't ignore those people. Don't ignore your kinesthetic learners. In one of our classes today in choral methods, we saw there was a lot of kinesthetic movement in a lot of the choral rehearsing that we saw that seemed to be very effective. That was great. It's also good for auditory learners. And in some cases, the visual learners, that worked out really well. What about people that like group work or don't like group work? They want to work by themselves. What ways, are you working with all of the students that are present in your class? That's what they kind of want to see. Video recordings are always great. If you can provide evidence of you doing the thing, that's a big deal to a principal. You guys will hear me say this a billion times during your time with me, and I'm so sorry. I got my job based on teaching video, essentially. That is what got me my first job. My principal actually looked at my portfolio, this was back when things were burned on CDs and DVDs, but I sent one and it had evidence of my teaching. And that was the reason that he called me in for an interview. He liked what he saw and wanted to see more of that and talk to that person. So videos are great. Learning environments. How do you set up a successful learning environment? What does that look like? Your content knowledge. Guys, that's literally music stuff. That's showing principals, hey, I know what I'm doing, right? Here's my recital. I'm a good performer. I'm good at the thing that you're hiring me to do. Those are pretty, content knowledge is an easy one for us. We can come up with a lot of artifacts for that because we've been musicking a whole bunch. Application of content. That's not you applying the content. That's getting the students to apply the content. That's a really important distinction. It's not about you knowing how to apply your content. It's about getting your students to apply their content knowledge. So how do you get them to do that? A big thing there is critical thinking and problem solving. How do you get your kids to do that with music? If you have lesson plans or activities or videos of kids engaging in that, those are like really good pieces of evidence that would work great. Assessments that you've done that are really successful. That's awesome. Rubrics, student work samples on a variety of different assessments. Planning. Hey guys, planning is planning. Showing how you're going to find that some of these things that you use for planning might also be good for learner differences and learner development because they're kind of connected, right? So you might have some stuff that crosses over. 8 is instructional strategies. Again, 7 and 8, they hold hands. They're like this. 1 and 2 and 7 and 8, they really go together. They really go together real tight. So you might find yourself wanting to pull from the same places. As many unique pieces of evidence as you can find is going to be good. Try not to share in this case because you want a principal to see that You've done a lot of things, right? I've done a lot of stuff. I've created a lot of learning experiences. Even if you haven't necessarily enacted them, you know how to and you can. And it's not just the same thing over and over again. You're not a one trick pony. Let's see. Professional learning and ethical practice. This is where actually attending and then reflecting upon what you learn from Innovate on Sunday would be a really good thing, right? When you guys find something that you go, wow, I didn't know anything about that. Right? Like Becca was just talking the other day about attending a conference on social and emotional learning. Awesome. That's great. Not only can that be professional development and ethical practice, but if there's something that you learned from that that you could then apply to standard one, right? Learner development. Because one of the areas we ignore a lot is social emotional. We do a lot with cognitive areas, physical areas, and linguistic. We don't do as much with social emotional. And SEL is very specific to that. And so if you find something, you know, you attend a professional development that makes you go, ooh, this would be great. This would be an awesome way to apply it. You can, you know, I hate to use the term kill two birds with one stone because let's not kill birds, but you can get two things done at once. That'd be amazing. And then leadership and collaboration. Oh my goodness. Something that hopefully in the internship class that I'm eventually going to get approved through a curriculum committee that maybe some of you might take someday. You'll have to actually do a school improvement plan project because often the school improvement team, you'll go into almost any school, high school, middle school, elementary school across the country. They have a school improvement team. They have goals to improve their school. And usually they want an arts representative somewhere on that team because they want to try and have somebody from every area. And often that might be a music teacher. Some years it's the music teacher, sometimes it's the art teacher, whatever, depending on how many people are in your school. Maybe that's you, maybe it's somebody else. But understanding what the school improvement plan does and being able to collaborate with other people and be a leader in your school. That's a great thing. Anytime you've been a leader anywhere, right? So, Becca, something that's going to work for you and Jackson, being an arts ambassador here for the School of the Arts, that's a leadership position. Jackson, of course, you've got one, being involved with CNAFME at the state level. Anything that you guys have done there, that's awesome. That's good stuff. You want to add that. If you've been a leader at your church, if you've been a leader anywhere at school, those are wonderful pieces of evidence. And you might be thinking, what's a piece of evidence look like? Okay, so I did vacation Bible school and I was, you know, an age group leader. How do I show that? What does that look like? Because that's not like a paper or a lesson plan. You're totally right. What you do for something like that is you get like a graphic from your vacation Bible school or from your church, and you show a picture of the graphic, and then you write about that experience. That's where the reflection part comes in, where you say, here's when I had a leadership position. This is me, you know, being a teacher leader. This is how I did that. So that's where sometimes you're like, what does that piece of evidence look like? But don't count it out just because there isn't a physical product that came out of the experience. Sometimes just writing about the experience is the piece of evidence. So, you know, don't discount anything. Be creative, cast a wide net when you think about what might work for these different pieces of evidence. But this, again, this is also in this, boop, not in task standards, in this document that has ePortfolio set up. Go ahead. Yeah, you're good.
So I haven't really done a formal leadership position in my 4 years at Samford, but I am informally, like I have led a few lessons with this service cadre that I'm doing,
Uh-huh.
and there will be a reflection paper after that. Could I use that reflection paper as a like leadership and collaboration evidence?
Yes, And anytime, really, guys, anytime that you've worked on like a service project, anything like that, those are skills that can then, um, they can be extrapolated out. God, Becca, if I say the word extrapolate one more time, I've said it so often this week. Um, it you want to make sure that you show how those skills from that experience transfer into what your job will be as a teacher. To say, I'm prepared to work with other professionals in the school because of this experience. So you want to make sure you're advocating for yourself through this portfolio. That's the purpose. Does anybody have any questions? Y'all are feeling good? Good in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I'm just really worried because a lot of this stuff, like leadership, I haven't really done, and I've applied, but I've never been like, formally. So I'm trying to think of ways that I can do it, and I guess the service cadre is one, but how many examples are they looking for? Like five, six?
It I think different people have different strengths. I don't think that it's okay. Becca and OG had this situation the other day where they were like, my document is not going to look like this example. And I was like, that's okay that it doesn't look like that. It doesn't have to look like that. Not everybody's portfolio is going to look the same because people are going to have strengths in different areas. Like for me, I can tell you right now that coming out of college, what I could have told you a lot about, what I would have been able to do, I think all of us are going to feel really good about our content knowledge for sure, right? Like we should all have pretty strong content knowledge in School of the Arts and in music. But places where I would have felt really good would have been in learner development and learning differences. Those were places that, because I wanted to be a music therapist at one time and thought about doing special education, these were things I learned a lot about. And I really wanted to make sure, and a lot of my field experience that I took on for myself, like one of the students that I worked with in a program that I did in my undergraduate was a student with albinism. He was an albino. And what does that have anything to do with music? Sometimes folks that have albinism really struggle with their eyesight. And this student was playing mallet percussion, and I was working with them, and they needed to have a lot of very large print music printed for them. And a lot of their learning happened by rote. There was just a lot of muscle memory and things like that. That experience is something that, I would have looked at and I would have used in my learning differences area. Also, I did an internship at a Montessori school. That is very different. That's a totally different technique than most public school. And so that learning environment was, whoa, like those kids didn't want to do things that public school kids did, because Montessori school kids are usually very independent. They like work on math the way that they want to work on math, when they want to work on math, for the amount of time that they want to work on math. So when it was like, oh guys, it's music time and we're going to come together and do this as a group activity, they looked at me like I was an insane person, and some of them really didn't want to do it. And it was a very it was a stretching experience for me, that I got to write a lot about. And I was really glad that I had it. So those three areas for me, really strong, really, really strong in learner development, learning differences, and learning environments. Things that were not so strong for me, honestly, were assessment. My assessment strategies were not good. I was not great at trying to get kids to do critical thinking and problem solving. The way that I was taught to teach choir was make it sound good, make the music come out of their face holes pretty, and then you did your job good. The assessment was, are they singing better? That was my assessment. And so this was really weak. I Had that been a thing that I had to do in my in-task portfolio, no, I would have failed there, because I was not strong. So you might have some areas where you're going, yeah, I'm good at this. This is something that I've got a lot of different, this is me. So if you find yourself being the kind of person nowadays, I would say, well, I mean, after teaching for as long as I have, I should be pretty good at all of these at this point. But the areas that I've focused on a lot over the past several years are on instructional strategies. I like to say that I'm the kind of person that tries to find a million different ways to learn to tie shoes. There are lots of different ways to do it. And I want to discover all the different ways to teach quarter notes and eighth notes. How are different ways that I could go about it? What ways could I engage my learners? What's that look like? So instructional strategies are something that over the past several years of my career that I've wanted to get better at. And I think I've gotten better at. But an area that's still really weak for me, honestly, leadership and collaboration. I don't think if I were to do an in-task portfolio today, yeah, it would look good, but it's definitely not as strong as the other 9 areas for me personally. I think the collaboration part is good. I think the leadership part for me, not so much. I'm still not there as a teacher leader as much as I would want to be. So you might not be as strong in all of the areas. We're going to work on that though. We want you to be as well rounded as humanly possible by the time you leave here. But you might find I've got a lot of stuff for this because I'm interested in that, or that's a thing that I'm good at. That's okay. Try not to let that get you down. It's not going to, usually make or break you on getting hired or not hired. People know when they go to hire you that they're hiring a first year teacher. They can tell just by looking at when you graduated that I'm not hiring a seasoned veteran. This person is going to need to learn things about these areas and that areas, and they're going to deepen their understanding and their breadth as they go through their career. So try not to stress out too much about that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's We're going to do everything we can, but you guys want to be your best, and that is wonderful. I'm so glad, but we're going to make you the best for where you are right now. Try not to think of what the best is as if you're a 20-year veteran teacher. That's not the same, and no one expects it to be.
All right. Well,
Anybody?
thank.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
So, do we need to have this portfolio done before we student teach, or can we work on it while we're student teaching?
You're going to be, it should be something that exists before you student teach, and you will be adding to it and refining it while you student teach. Because
Okay.
you're, yeah, like you might have some evidence beforehand, and then as you're student teaching you might go, ooh, this will be awesome. Like what you're probably going to want to do, if I'm a principal and I'm looking through one of these portfolios, I'm going to want to see the most important things. The best evidence is going to be up top and probably the most recent evidence. So as I go through this page, when I look at learner development, the most recent things, or like the most whiz bang best evidence that you can show me, are going to want to be like your first and second things on the page. Maybe you've got three more things, but maybe that last thing is like something that you did in your freshman year. There's some stuff that you're going to want to cut. Like if you look at somebody's resume, you as you get older and older and as you go on in time, you're going to start cutting things from your resume because they're no longer relevant. Like the job that you had, when like my job when I was in the ninth grade. I had a job as a grocery store checker at Ryder's Stop and Shop when I was 14 years old. I don't put that on my resume anymore because I have much more relevant experience that has to do with my career. And nobody cares what I did when I was 14 because that's a really long time ago. So, as you get more experience, some of those evidences will be replaced. So, you should start putting things in there now that you think can fit and saying, here's where I need to work. Here's where I feel like, I need to create some more evidence. And then, as you do your student teaching, you might say, ooh, this blows that other piece of evidence right out of the water. I'm not even going to include that thing anymore because I've got so much that is amazing for standard 7 now. Right?
I think the best thing to do with me would be for me to just take the summer and do this. This is the summer project for me because I'm also thinking about doing marching band tech work. And if anyone could get me in contact with a band director who is looking for a tech, please let me know. Um, I can give them my contact information, or I know a few band directors, but if anyone else knows any band directors in the area that are like, hey, I need someone to do marching band tech work for the brass, especially, please ask them to uh, send me their contact information, and I'll get in contact with them.
Absolutely, y'all. This is something to chip away at, and it's hard to remember to do that. But it's almost like at the end of every semester, I should probably like send out a reminder that says, "Hey guys, look at all the projects from this semester that you did, all the papers you wrote, all the lesson plans you did, all the boop boop bob, and see if anything fits in any of your portfolio spots. Go ahead and move them over to your non-Samford Google Drive and put them there now so you don't forget about them." And that's something that I'll try to remember to do that for you all, because this is not going to be at the forefront of your mind, and that's totally okay. You have so many other things to do, so I will try to be diligent about reminding you.
Thank you, Dr. Soya.
Uh-huh. Does
Oh,
it any
the links that you posted to the documents,
Yes.
we can't access them. I
No.
I can't. Yeah, it says request access. So I sent you
Okay.
a request.
Okay, guys. Yeah, let me go ahead and ugh, boo. I can do this afterwards. We don't necessarily need to do it right at this moment in front of y'all, but I will make sure that I change the permissions on these so that you guys can see them, so that you can do things. Um, Maybe not so that you can edit it, but you should be able to view it at least. Let's hope that that's what's going to happen when I make these changes here. Um, get link, anybody can view. That should be correct. And I just did what I said I'm not going to do, which is do that right here, right now. All right.
Hey, that's okay. Sometimes that's the best time to do things. Is right now.
Yeah, I have those moments on occasion where I'm like, ooh, vey. Does anybody have any other questions?